for those of you who were here in the end of August, that this was almost the exact same spot that I was standing. As you can see, my name is Elizabeth Sands. I typically go by Liz. And I wanted to make sure that I first welcomed everybody to come today and hear us out. Thank you to the press and the community members who took time out of their day to come. I'm obviously not a public speaker, and I've never been to a press conference before, so I'll do this. Hope I don't keep everybody. First of all, thank you to the Frankfurt Square Park District for allowing us to use their space. This is a great, honest organization who does a really wonderful service to this community. Thank you to everyone here who gave 5 minutes or 500 hours to make this happen. There were hundreds of people doing hundreds of things, not 5 people doing 500 things. And I mean that sincerely. There were truly hundreds of us doing this. I need to tell you why. Why? I'm the one that drove this. I'm the one that needs to tell you why I did this. Before I do that, I need to tell you a few things about me. First of all, I live by pretty much 3 separate things. 1 is personal responsibility. 2, life is about choices. The big ones and the small ones. And 3, if you point the finger, 3 more fingers are pointing right back at you. So you better look at yourself first before you point the finger at anyone else. Why did I do this? Because I'm pissed. I got pissed over the summer as I watched what I thought was Lincoln Way turn into the Wizard of Oz. I felt like Dorothy who got picked up by the tornado and thrown into a place I didn't recognize. I'm a Lincoln Way graduate from the 80s. There are 2 more plaintiffs that are also Lincoln Way graduates. And we're all pissed because what we saw happen in this community was something that we thought was fiscal responsibility that was turned into an absolute mess. If you have the opportunity today, take a look at the funds game. We have stuff that's all over the place. This happened so fast, none of us knew what was happening. I don't know about you guys, but I trusted these people. I didn't just trust them with my money, but I trusted them with our children. And this is what we get for it. And I'm angry. And that's why I did this. Because it's not right. We were not involved. And that is not fair. I expect personal responsibility. None of them took personal responsibility for anything that happened before, anything that happened during, or anything that's happened since. Choices. We all make choices every single solitary day. The choices they made happened so fast, so quick. They didn't even, we offered help. I've seen a lot of the emails. You see the stuff here? Hundreds of emails that we FOIA. So many of you offered help, professionals, people who had time. Everybody offered help. They didn't take it. They just didn't take it. And finally, pointing the finger. We pointed the finger at the state. We now believe that by pointing the finger at the state, in reality they were pointing 3 more fingers back at them. And that is not right. We owe it to ourselves as a community to stand up, find out what's behind that curtain, because I can't figure it out. I don't know what's behind there, and I've been looking at this for months and months at a time, because every time we go to open the curtain to find out what's happening, we get things shoved in our faces, and it's not what's behind the curtain. There's something there. There's got to be something there. Something's being hidden. I don't know what it is. I came here 5 months ago to a call of action, and a lot of you, a lot of familiar faces were here. And I just want to say thank you very much. Thanks.
Thank you, Liz. I can definitely feel that we are all pissed off. We're all emotional of what happened, why it happened, and should it have happened. But I want to read a couple things real quick to show you what we are, who we are, and how we were formed, Lincoln Way Area Taxpayers Unite. We were formed in August 2015 and is a group of community members whose mission is to demand responsibility and accountability within the District 210. If you think that we are getting that accountability right now, let me know, because we would like to see that. We're not getting any of that. We're going to hold the District 210 responsible for the financial, education, and moral obligations to the taxpayers and the students of the Lincoln Way area. You can always reach us, lincolnwayarea.taxpayersunite.org, to find out more about us. We're teaching you, the community, of what needs to happen. This shouldn't be normal Illinois politics with people using a $110 million budget at their discretion. They're the people that are screwing this up for us, for our children, for the parents. Over 5,000 students, parents, community members are pissed. And we're here to tell everybody we're not standing up for this any longer. This is BS. And I'm sorry to say that, but I'm not taking this lightly anymore. We're doing something, we put something together, 532 pages of a lawsuit against them personally. No damages, but against them as far as we want answers. We want to know, where is our money going? Why is it so irresponsible for you to tell us your finances? It's our tax dollars. And I just want everybody to understand that. It comes out of your pocket and they are our children. Okay, now my emotions got to come down a little bit. So I wanted to go over a couple things. So we started as a grassroots, like Liz says. And it was on the notion they were closing our school. And we get that, right? But we wanted to know why they're closing our school and how they're closing our school. And then after you look and you peel that first peel back of whatever banana we're looking at, and you find that it's rotten. And it's rotten all the way through. And that's what drove us. So it came from the closing. Now what is it? Now we're looking at all their finances. Rob, Liz, countless others. I think there are 50, 60, 100 people, 150 people that are looking into their finances. They're not liking that. And they don't like to see that. They don't want people nosing around in their business to see exactly what they're doing. This is not Illinois politics as usual. We're here to put a stop to that. Now we believe, I want to sit down here because I'm going to read a couple points. But we believe in certain things that we have found. And a couple of quick points, and I hope the press has packets of everything that we have in there. And before we open it up for questions, I just wanted to read a couple of them. And the main thing is that when we say that the board's knee-jerk reaction to close the school, and that's indeed what it was. After a certain amount of days, there was no best practices. We all get that, and I think everybody in this room can understand that you just don't close a school and affect that many people without having some kind of involvement. But I wanted to read this little blurb here. They base their information they receive from their administration we believe, is arbitrary and capricious. So what does arbitrary and capricious mean? Okay? Maybe there's a lot of people in this room, especially some kids, I know my children are here. Some others maybe don't understand what arbitrary and capricious means. It is an absence of a rational connection between the facts and the choice made. And if anyone here or anyone listening can tell me the rational decision to close North, we would love to hear it. Because we're not hearing anything back from the board regarding how that was formed. And then they send us information, they have no detail behind it, and that's where we're here. And that's why we're here. And that's why we're trying to investigate and do our research. We did it all, we put it together, and with Steve's help, what did we do? We filed a complaint. And this complaint is to stop any school from closing. We firmly believe, after looking at the finances, after looking at all the inadequate finances that they've done, and for the since 2009 at least, Rob, something like that. What I'm saying is that come back to us, reset. We're filing this, and you're not getting away with this. You're not getting away with this any longer. Anyway, quick points before we get on to some questions. Imagine what could have been found if a forensic audit was done for 15 years. I think that would speak volumes. And what we've done in a few months, what someone would have done that is almost like our community for the last 6 to 9 months, a forensic audit of everything, what they would have found, it would have been maddening to everybody. The financial ineptness is maddening to all of us. We don't understand how they can continue this, and we're here to put a stop to it. Another couple quick points. Former Superintendent Wiley authorized construction of a super dog training school. All right? That to me, if you're spending and you're deficit spending year after year after year after year, why are you building a super dog training facility? Regardless of how much it is, what they told us, it's the $40,000 range, I want to say, but who knows what it really is? Because everything they have given us is filled with lies or not the correct information at the time, or we couldn't get the information from them. One more point, just to see the spending and how the spending operates. Water leak at Central in the beginning of 2010 rose to as high as 1 million gallons a month. I don't understand how that's possible. If I go to my house and I have a water bill that comes in at $200,000 or $2,000 or $400 or $40 over what I'm used to, I will find out that in probably a day to see what's going on. This is the typical spending pattern of Lincoln Way 210. This is what the board does. They wrap it up, rubber stamp it, move on. And we're here to say that's not happening anymore. I have nothing further. Any questions from the community as well? Yes.
Good afternoon. First of all, could you clarify where the dog training center is located?
That's in the north,
At Lincoln Way North.
Lincoln Way North.
Okay, thank you. So my question is, can you verify or deny the claim made by the school board of District 210, that is the Illinois State Board of Education, was going to come into our district and make them close one, if not two schools, if they did not do it themselves?
Liz, why don't you talk to that?
I have spoken to the representative that spoke at the June 11th meeting myself, and I was told that the decision on how to reduce our deficit spending is the districts and the districts alone. And he said that they typically do not come in and take over, that it is something that is only done if it's typically an academic thing, that they will come in and take over a school district when there's issues there, but definitely not if we're making progress. The only thing, and in fact, if you go look at the board minutes from June of 2011, you'll see in there that all the ISBE wants is truly just for us to make progress. If it takes us 10 years to get off the watch list, it takes us 10 years to get off the watch list. So,
But they never specifically told the board they had to shut the school down?
No.
That they were going to come in and close one?
They did not.
They never said that. Okay, thank you.
anybody else have questions? A lot of you here. Yeah.
Is there any way you could get the state involved and have them do the audit?
Margot McDermott, I believe, proposed legislation to have the general auditor of the state come in and do an audit. And the way that the audit works is the school has an auditor, and that auditor gives a report. And in our history, the report has had a bunch of deficiencies. And it is up to the board to look at those deficiencies and make sure that the administration is correcting them. The Illinois State Board of Education, the ISBE, oversees that process. And as long as the board is approving and as long as the reports are being created on time, that's all that matters.
Because I'm self-employed and I'll get audited for $20,000 of miscellaneous business expenses. Now, if we have, $150 million, that seems like there should be some sort of like felony prosecution, jail time. There should be a major lawsuit through the state, through them, through everybody. People should be responsible with, jail time, as far as I'm concerned.
Well, I can say that we have given some of the information that we discovered to the FBI as well as to the state's attorney. And we, I believe, have also sent stuff to the Attorney General. And I'm trying to think if there's anybody else, the EPA perhaps. And we hope that they look into it. We really truly hope they look into it because there's a lot here. What you guys see in the lawsuit is truly the tip of the iceberg. What I have in front of me, for those of you who don't know, is some of the binders that we use to provide information to our attorney and that we went through. So there's way more than what was put in the lawsuit.
If all's been going with your things to get all 4 schools to stay open, how would that be accomplished in a feasible way?
Perfect question. Currently, we believe that we can keep all 4 schools open, and in fact, Bob has looked at the November Treasurer's Report. I don't know if you wanted to talk about that.
The current fiscal year, we are in the fiscal year 2016. Through November of 16, which would be 5 out of this 12 months through the year, the district is currently, let me take a step back. The district for FY16 has budgeted a deficit of approximately $5 million. Through November, which is the last month that the board has presented financial statements, we're favorable to that budget of around $4.8 million. So as of the end of November recently, we're basically break even. So we budgeted a loss of $5 million, but we're on target now to lose approximately $150,000 or to be break even. So there seems to be some disconnect there between what we're budgeting and what's currently happening.
And that's with 4 schools.
That's what the current 4 schools are.
And running.
Would that include activities at the same level they are today, no reduction in activities and services?
That's as of today, that's with all 4
Yeah.
schools.
Functioning as 4 schools, yeah.
Excuse me, there are people back here asking if you could stand up when you speak, please, and speak a little bit louder. Thank you.
What's the timeline for the courts to be looking at a case?
The way it works, we got a set case management date, but I'm not bound by that. Once I know that the sheriff of Will County has served the board and the board members, or once they waive service of summons, once I know that they've gotten that complaint and they've read through it, I'm going to be back in Will County asking that we set a hearing date for the preliminary injunction. I don't know when that's going to be because I don't know when they're going to acknowledge that they've gotten service, but it will be soon after that.
A couple points, if you could clarify, not only are we presumably paying for a school that's going to close through 2033, I believe it was. Clarify some of the dollars involved there, and I guess my second point would be, not only will we be closing the school and paying for it, well, wasn't there also bond or restructuring of the debt 2 years ago, after they knew the projections as far as student populations and what was happening, that they restructured debt to build a 5th school, so in essence, we're paying that as well for the additional Lincoln Way North closing?
Yeah, that's a very complicated question and a very complicated answer. I hope I can do it justice, and maybe some folks will jump in. When we all voted in 2006 for the referendum for the $225 million to build the 2 new schools and to operate and equip, I think, or whatever it said, that was 2006. We took out a bond issue in 6, 7, and 9, I believe. And in 2013, that was restructured. We don't know why they restructured it. There was going to be a balloon payment in 2020. So what happened was, like many other school districts in the state of Illinois, they were sold a package. And I should say that we learned this through the Edgar County Watchdogs. They were really fantastic in helping us to understand a lot of the stuff that we didn't realize was happening outside of our Lincoln Way bubble. And we refinanced that. We added 9 years and $104 million to our debt. So to give you, to make it look like our own mortgage, if I take a mortgage out on my house and it's a 15-year mortgage, I pay X amount. But if I take out a 30-year mortgage, I pay far more. We all know that because most of us have taken mortgages out. So we added $104 million, so now we are in debt. As of today, we still have $503 $1.3 million, $500 million that we need to repay. The last payment that we will make on our taxes for that year, it will have climbed up to $41 million for that year alone that we have to pay today. It's $14 million, so it will effectively be nearly triple what it is today. And that will be paid in 2034 for the 2033 levy year. And it was restructured in 2013, as you said, and the interesting thing when you look at the principal and interest is there's a ton of interest being paid starting in a couple of years, and then all of a sudden it jumps and it does all kinds of funky things. So I don't know if that answered your question, but
Just one thing, was it restructured to look at potentially building a Lincoln Way South in 2008?
I'm not sure exactly how in the world we could ever in a million years afford another school. I really don't, I have no idea how that would be possible. I think what may have been done was because the interest was funny, was that it was done so that maybe during that time frame we could have done something, but clearly I think that what happened was we restructured and we basically gave ourselves a balloon mortgage again, where the payments looked really great. None of us really would have known anything was a problem until 2019 when it spikes up a little bit. And then we probably all would have been crying because of the fact that we just didn't know. It looked great up front.
Without, let me just interject here, without us or without the community coming together, right, what happens is North closes and we still pay for that school. And then it gets shuttered, right? And then it goes to their plan, it gets shuttered, and if they don't lease it out, which I don't know who's gonna lease it out, what happens is then the surrounding community, the houses around that school, they lose value. And then what happens is the houses lose value around that school, the houses next to them start losing value. And then it just keeps going dominoes down the effect to where our house values will decrease.
Hasn't the district continued to purchase additional plots of land even over the past 6 or 7 years? And following times when possibly the economy and the building market had slowed, haven't they purchased several additional plots of land in different areas? And do you know how many they have and where they are?
The interesting thing about Lincoln Way is that first and foremost, we're a school district. We are not real estate brokers, but when you look at the real estate holdings, present, past, and God, I hope not in the future, it is vast in the area. In 1993, we purchased an 80-acre parcel in Manhattan, presumably for a future site of Lincoln Way, and had we just stuck with that, we could have built a single high school when it was needed with land we already owned, but instead, more and more land, 80 acres, 100 acres, the two parcels that we all know of here, Lincoln Way North where it currently sits, the one up at Harlem and 191st, we've spent millions and millions and millions of dollars for land that, quite frankly, we didn't need. And not only was it large parcels of land in all different areas of the area, but we've purchased tons and tons of land for the houses for the building trades. And instead of partnering perhaps with a builder and having the students go and learn on the side, we were actually the real estate brokers or the construction company doing it ourselves.
So they've continued to purchase plots of land even over the past 6 or 7 years?
Absolutely.
Okay.
And I believe we have one of them in the lawsuit.
When you serve the board, is that like a subpoena where they have to come back right away or no? Timely manner?
The sheriff of Will County will go out to the district office and serve them officially. They'll have 30 days to respond. In addition, someone went out today and hand-delivered what we call a waiver acknowledgement, a waiver of summons. So the board's office got those today. They also have 30 days to respond to that. What we wanted to do is make sure that they were notified both ways so that whichever, again, they can sit there and they can file an appearance in court 2 or 3 days from now on the waiver, or they can wait for the sheriff to come out and wait for 30 days. I just want to see them get into court as quickly as possible, so that we can get into court.
That's what I was.
The reason they're closing North, they say, is because they need to save $5 million. How much do they plan on saving by the closure of North?
Sure. That's an interesting question, actually. The administration had presented some information to the board as far as the savings for closing North. We had asked for the detail through the Freedom of Information Act for the detail of those expenses that were supposed to be saved, and we were informed that there was no detail for those expenses, that it was only the slide presentation that was presented to everybody at the board. So it's very hard to say if, where those numbers came from and if they're, would be realized.
But they had no real idea how much money they were gonna save?
I'm sorry?
They had no real idea how much money they were gonna save?
They presented a chart showing approximately $5 million with 5 or 6 different categories. When we asked for the detail of those categories to see how they came up with those numbers, we were told in the response to the FOIA request that there was no detail.
There were no real details.
That's what they said in our FOIA request.
Yeah. And yeah, the reason we FOIA'd it was because, and FOIA is Freedom of Information Act, the reason that we FOIA'd it was because we couldn't figure out how to make it match. I'll tell you another one, and it's actually in the lawsuit as well, is we couldn't figure out how to make the instructional salary line item of the audited financial record match with the salaries that are listed on the website. There's millions of dollars of difference. I have no idea where that came from. So what did we do? We FOIA'd, Freedom of Information Act, the payroll journal, and our response was, we don't know what that is, we're denying your request. Okay, there's probably some people here who are not accountants, and I'll say it in layman's terms, and Bob could probably talk for miles and miles and miles about this point. It is who got paid, when they got paid, how much they got paid, and what account it went into. Was it in the English department? Was it in the math department? Was it part of the gym? You know, what was it to? And they denied it. We FOIA'd that on October 7th and went back and forth, told them exactly what we want, and it was denied and denied and denied yet and yet again. And I don't know about you guys, but my first question is, what are you hiding? I don't understand that. I believe it was Monday, this past Monday, a second FOIA went out for this, and in fact, the Edgar County Watchdogs also asked for this information, and on Monday, this week, we got a report that was not called Payroll Journal, it was called something else, some convoluted name. And so we have that information for the month of June. We have to tie that out, obviously, we're definitely gonna do that, but this is indicative of pretty much every other FOIA request we've asked for information on. There's this one, and I could probably stand up here and rattle off a bunch more, I don't know if anybody cares, but there's a bunch.
I think a big follow-up to that is they've had deficit spending since 2009. And I think well, we're gonna go probably 2003. Right? And the biggest issue that I have when we were looking at this, we're doing our research and investigating, is that you see these handwritten notes by the former superintendent of putting funds, writing on a piece of paper, put funds, take them out of here, put them there. You can't do that. I mean, that's, correct me if I'm wrong, I think what is that, Rob? That's, when you investigated that, was wrong.
Well, they were transfers of funds that weren't authorized by the board.
So that's contrary to the board's got to approve the final budget, and Wiley's making the actuals on handwritten notes. Now, that's the prior superintendent. We haven't found anything with the current superintendent, but we found enough on him already. But that was what they were doing, was writing it up. Which I thought was interesting. It's in the report as well. It's in the report.
This lawsuit is to bring accountability to our board, our current board, but we know from all the information that you guys have gathered that it isn't just our current board, it is past board. Is there going to be something that brings those retired or people who have stepped down since, bring them to accountability as well?
At this point, this injunction is strictly about the current Board of Education for District 210.
I think if the authorities find that there is something that happened here that was illegal, that I believe that they ought to do something about it. Because this is millions of dollars that's been wasted. It's unfortunate. It's unfortunate.
And there are, well, we were going through this process since August, and I know at my house specifically, and I think Liz's and Rob's as well, anonymous letters would show up at my doorstep. And I would open these letters, and they would talk about different things such as the super dog training, or they talk about other things that other people have found, but they don't want to speak up. Could be somebody in this room, I don't know. But there was anonymous letters that kept, showing up once we started this, once we started the process. That leads me to believe there's a lot of people have a lot of concern out there saying, hey, listen, you guys are speaking for us, thank you. We can't do the talk for you, but I appreciate it. Look at this, look into this. People's numbers were what happened, what they believe happened, what they've seen. They've worked there. And these anonymous letters, to me, we have a lot more to look into. There's a lot of investigative things that happen.
I know that you've pointed a lot of different things, but I would like to maybe bring to everyone's attention. I sat through a lot of the board meetings, starting in May, June, whenever I could make it, and I remember distinctly the board telling us as residents that the transportation costs were a certain percentage of the budget, and that their decision on which school to close when they decided to close a school would be based primarily or on a large part of transportation costs. Can you please share with everyone what happened when we FOIA'd the transportation costs affiliated with all of the different options they showed us at that meeting?
Susie, it was denied that the information did not exist.
The information did not exist?
Yes. We also came to learn later through other FOIA requests, and this is in the lawsuit as well, I believe it was page 184, 185, was that not only was our request for that denied, but inquiries that were not necessarily FOIA requests were also stopped by board members from us getting that information. Just as community members, they said, do not give us this information because we might do something with it for our own agenda. Yes.
This affects our school and it affects all of our kids. But have you gotten anything from all the teachers that could be losing their jobs, or do you think that's the envelopes that you're getting on your doorstep?
The envelopes were specifically on the door. The anonymous envelopes were specifically talking to items such as the super dog training and what was going on there from that point of view. And there's some asbestos issues at Central that I think we should talk to. As far as the teachers and what's going to happen to as far as their salaries, or nobody wants anybody to lose their job ever. I mean, let's be honest, guys, right? So, and everybody wants everybody to make sure that we have that same standard of academic excellence within 4 schools. So to talk to your point, whether or not the teachers they haven't come toward us, not that I'm aware of, and as far as I'm concerned, they're a little more, they're worried as well, because if they go through with this closed north, they're moving teachers everywhere. And how many they're gonna cut, I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, this is something that was done so quickly and seemingly without much thought that I don't know that there's been any consideration given. And that's unfortunate because I don't know, and because of the fact that when we FOIA'd, what other information did the board have to make this decision? And we were told that they didn't have anything more than the presentations that we all saw, which tells me that was there any discussions with the teachers union about freezing salaries or cutting salaries? I mean, all we need to do is cut 5% of our budget, which we've already clearly done this year, to make it to even. And if we cut 10% one year and then maybe a few percent next year, 5 years from now, suddenly we have our $30 million back. When the number of students starts to dip with the population, assuming the enrollment does drop like it's supposed to, because people stopped having babies when the recession happened back in 2008, and our taxes continue to bring in more money, and our taxes pay for far more than anything else in this district. The state only gives us 12% of our budget. It's less than 12% of a $12 million or $100 million budget. So we would have the ability to, you know, fill back our coffers, keep all 4 schools, and move forward. So, questions?
We had a back question, sorry.
I was told when I was asking about the teachers, being a teacher myself, not in this district, but I was very concerned that there was a very small percentage that would be losing their jobs because there's the same amount of children. So they have to educate them, and they can't have 40 kids in a classroom, but those classrooms at East can't hold 40 kids. So the amount of teachers that will be losing their jobs is very small because we are reducing in enrollment.
Exactly.
And in North enrollment is the largest that it's been since it opened. So I don't understand where that is.
Yeah, we don't understand that either. We don't understand that either. We don't understand how, there are so many things that could be done here. And the unfortunate part is that we've never had the opportunity to have that conversation. You and I are talking back and forth. If you've been to a board meeting, you know, it's, you talk to me, you sit down, and then I talk to you. And that's how the board meetings work. We've never had this back and forth conversation, and it's unfortunate because you probably have 5 ideas as an educational professional I'm clueless about. I should not know any of this stuff. I shouldn't know what an AFR is. I shouldn't know what any of this is. And it's unfortunate we never had that conversation. It was never brought up. If you have 7,000 students, you still need to teach 7,000 students. You still need to educate them. So, yeah.
Our superintendent got a big retirement plan, moved out to Florida. I heard rumored he's still getting $150,000 a year to be an advisor as of today?
If we had the payroll journal, we could tell you that.
Our retired superintendent has a pension of over $300,000 a year. Highest paid retiree in the state of Illinois.
Possibly still on a payroll right now.
And I might add that we have FOIA'd that payroll journal for other districts for comparison purposes, and we got it same day, no questions asked.
Is that a legal one?
It's not illegal, no.
That was?
It's not illegal because it's, how am I gonna say this nicely?
Don't say it nicely. Don't be nice.
Don't be nice.
It is a matter of semantics. I call it potato, you call it potato. I can deny it on the basis that you said it wrong. If you watch the public hearing for the budget from back in September, you will find the first thing that we asked for was a building budget. We called it a buildings budget because someone who works as an administrator in another district said that's what you need to ask for, so that's what we asked for. If you look at the first of 3 of those things on our LWATU channel, you will find in about 20, 25 minutes, you'll watch the community for about 5 to 10 minutes pin down our director of business to finding out that we do indeed have building budgets, even though we had been asking for them for 2 months, and that indeed they have them. The board was not given them, but we have them. So it's a matter of semantics because I don't remember what it was called, but it wasn't called a building budget. So that's why we were denied. So, I don't know.
I have a question. I saw in the lawsuit about a mortgage on the parking lot at Central. And I looked at it, it looks like it's a revolving line of credit. Is that still open?
It is a line of credit that was taken out in the year 2000 by NLSB Trust 2115. And it was for $35,000. It is a line of credit with an unlimited amount, and it's open for 20 years. It still has 5 more years on it, and the description on it is Liberty Square subdivision in New Lenox, but the PIN number that was written on it is Lincoln Way Central's front parking lot. And yes, that information has been given to the authorities.
You know, maybe, hopefully this isn't reiterating information that everybody knows, but I think one of the things that initially got everybody upset and disturbed was the problem of the budgets. And, you know, it was kind of thrown back in the citizens' faces that, well, you had the opportunity to come to meetings and you should have been here if you thought there was a problem. And, you know, Bob, you probably know the numbers. maybe you can reiterate the last 6 or 7 years, because again, you have to remember, the board theoretically works for us. They're elected by us, they work for us. Their job is to represent the citizens with what's going on in the district. And what they did was presented these budgets over a time frame that looked very favorable, and the ordinary citizen sitting in the room here said, this is great, we have such a cool school district, our buildings are nice and everything's great. The behind the scenes part of it, maybe Bob, can you give people the
Yes.
numbers? Because I don't know that everybody really knows those numbers.
Sure. I have them here actually. So going back the last, looks like 5 years, 2011, the board passed a budget saying that we're gonna have a $104,000 profit. Actually, we lost $5.5 million. 2012, they budgeted a surplus of $600,000. We lost $7.4 million. 2013, they budgeted $106,000 surplus. We lost $5.6 million. 14, they budgeted $48,000 surplus. We lost $8.1 million. 2015, they budgeted $444,000 surplus. We lost $5.2 million. So we were consistently at huge deficits, but that had no bearing on how they prepared their.
That was over $30 million over that time frame.
31.8.
Okay, so they missed the budget by $30 million, and they didn't expect anybody to notice. Okay.
Have they been able to explain where that money is, what they did with it?
The money's gone, so
Where is it? What did they do with it? You know?
they spent it on
I mean,
operation.
have they been able to tell you
What?
what they spent it on?
What's that?
Have they been able to tell you what they spent it on?
Well, I think the problem here is that there's been no real budget process. These budgets they don't resemble reality at all. We can't budget that we're gonna make a surplus of $100,000 and lose $8 million. I mean, it just does, it's nonsense. And then for it to happen year after year after year without anybody standing up and saying, well, wait a minute, we need to find out what's happening. That's the problem.
It's very easy to say that they're not doing their job.
Now, the board has to approve these budgets.
Yes, we have a chart in the lawsuit that goes back to 2007. I know there's so many hands, I don't know where to go first.
So aside from this lawsuit, who exactly is the Board of Education, not our board, I'm sorry, who are they accountable to? Who are they?
We get to vote every 2 years. And the authorities.
That's it.
That's who they're accountable to. One of the things that we've learned the most, that's the most disturbing about this process, is the lack of oversight on the Board of Education, the lack of our ability as citizens to affect change and to, other than voting every 2 years. That's the only thing we can do. Hopefully there'll be more laws passed that will help us all. That will help us all. Yes.
So technically you're saying nobody oversees them, but what if every person in this building today signed a petition to the state's attorney that we would like them to dig into this? And that we think that as our representative, as the state's highest legal official, that is something that would be a valuable use of that office.
I think so. We really believe that this should be looked into by an authority that is, obviously, we're just a citizens group. I'm just a mom. That's all I am. I'm a hermit, in fact, I think.
As individuals, what would you recommend we do?
As an
To
individual?
support and sponsor what you're already doing.
I think that as a community, I want to know, at least the last 2 years, I want a full forensic audit for the last 2 fiscal years, fiscal 14 and fiscal 15. And I would kind of like to have it for this year as well. I want to find out where how did we get to this point where it was an emergency, according to them? How did we get there? I want to know the last 2 years. That's current administration, that's current practices. They've had all the time in the world to figure this out. Previous administration left in June of 2012. What have we been doing since then? So yeah, I think I would want that, and I think that if a petition would help to gain attention, and I think that's a great idea. That's a great idea. Somebody else had a question. here.
We signed a petition for the forensic audit.
We did.
So what happened?
So what happened? Bob's probably the best person because he's the one that knows the specifics on this.
So we presented a 2,700 signature petition to the board. The board went into closed meeting, they came out of closed meeting and decided that they were going to vote 7-0 in favor of having the administration prepare RFPs. There was actually 3 RFPs that they proposed at that time. One was to get rid of their existing auditor that had been around for the last 25 years and replace them to do their annual financial audit. 2 was just a proposal for an RFP for a financial audit. They didn't really expound.
Bob, RFP is request for proposal.
Request for proposal, I'm sorry, Brian. And then the third one was for a forensic audit. So they instructed the board, the administration to prepare these requests for proposals. And then approximately 2 board meetings later, they, after closed session, the administration came back and said that the administration's been instructed by the board, but we don't know if there was a vote or how this came about. But the administration said that the board has instructed them not to pursue the forensic audit, but instead that they were gonna do this agreed upon procedures audit relating to the bonds that were issued in 2006, 7, and 9. But the full forensic audit that they voted on went away. And we don't know if there was a vote on it. They didn't vote in public on it, so we don't know which board members decided not to pursue a forensic audit.
All right, new question here?
When you talk about forensic audit, are you asking for an audit firm to review every transaction for the year?
Well, a forensic audit doesn't necessarily mean every single transaction.
So what would you expect? Can you define what you mean by forensic audit?
Sure, forensic audit would be done by an independent certified public accounting firm. They would look at the transactions with a more heavy emphasis on reviewing the nature of the transaction as opposed to just the ending balances. So it would be at their discretion, based upon what they're seeing in those records, to look further at pretty much anything that they wanted to look at.
So I guess how is that different than the financial audit?
Financial audit is for the purpose of expressing an opinion that the financial statements are fairly stated.
Both the balance sheet and the income statement?
Yes, the terms are actually slightly different in the government, but yes, for the financial statements.
So they are selecting transactions from throughout the year's test. You just want more selected, is that?
Yes, we've, at the meeting when the last financial audit was presented, one of the board members started to ask questions of the auditor. And it was pretty obvious that there's a very small percentage of transactions that were selected by the existing auditors.
Okay. And then with the denials on the Freedom of Information Act requests?
Yes.
Have you taken those to the Attorney General's office? Because
Yes.
I know
The Attorney General has a specific unit in their office where they investigate denials of the freedom of information. The problem is that process is not very speedy. Our attorney Steve could probably tell you some stories of some FOIAs that have been languished in that office for years.
Okay, so you're still waiting on responses from them then?
Yes, some of them.
All right, we're gonna try to wrap it up here. So,
A quick question. What should be our level of confidence that this will actually do what we're hoping it will do in putting off the closing of Lakeway North? And this started in the summer where I thought there's no way this will ever happen. They denied it initially. In over a 2-month period, we went from, we're not closing a school to vote quickly and Lakeway North is closed. You guys have done great work and even getting the motion filed. But I guess, and it might be a very tough question to answer, I'm not sure, but what should be our level of confidence that we can actually keep the Lakeway North open this year?
Instead of putting terms of
Yeah.
confidence.
I know, I don't know how to answer that, actually.
I'm gonna kind of confine myself to what's in the lawsuit. But you as the Lincoln Way community, first of all, I'll answer questions about, or give an idea of the FOIA. I mean, this group that you have helping you out is probably the best group I have ever worked with on putting together. Finding out information and doing the best they can. They FOIA hundreds of things, but what local governments, and I'll refer to the school district as a local government, what they've gotten into the habit of doing is, their attitude is, you tell us exactly what we have, and then we'll see if we're gonna give it to you. So when Liz talked about, well, we called it this and we called it that, they sit back in their offices and they say, well, we call it a little bit different term, so we're gonna tell them we don't have that. So then they can come back at us and they can try again. This goes on and on and on, and it's done to purposely prevent the public from getting the information. And then when you run out of ideas or you've exhausted all your resources on trying to find a name, you file a complaint with the Attorney General's office. And I don't mean to besmirch the Attorney General's office, but I'm aware of FOIA requests to the Public Access Counselor that have been sitting on their desks for 2.5 years. They do some very easily. They send a letter to the government agency and they say, oh, did you hold up this, did you hold up that? And if the agency is kind of caught, then they turn something over to you. But if there's a real question about whether or not some of this stuff should be released or not, it could take 2-3 years sometimes for the public access counselor to get back to you. That's why they got as much information as they could. We put it in the lawsuit. I want to emphasize that you folks as a community, the thing, I mean, I had all these people come in and they showed me all of this stuff, and I guess I'll digress and I'll talk about public employees. You know, there's laws protecting whistleblowers, but I'll tell you right now, as a government employee, you really don't want to be the one who comes in as a teacher or as a maintenance man. A former maintenance man came in, you see his affidavit in the lawsuit. You don't want to be that person coming in saying, hey, this former superintendent did this guy's doing this guy's doing that. Because you know what, even though there's laws protecting you, you have to put up with what you're going to be facing. So a lot of information may be still coming forward. I'll say there's a lot of information that's still trying to be checked out. When I saw this about Superdog come in, I couldn't believe it. You can read that in the lesson. Superdog, you know, public property, public credit. It's supposed to be used for public purposes. As I sat back and as we put together this lawsuit, I'm asking myself, okay, is there a purpose to the students? We have students here from Lincoln. Do you sign up for a class? And I don't mean to take anything away from dog training, but is there a class to teach the kids at Lincoln Way how to train dogs? Or was this put together, and I believe the information is correct, that we put in a lawsuit? The former superintendent hired certain people to train his dogs, and he decided that he could put that on the grounds of Lincoln Way North. He wouldn't have to pay for it anymore, and they had insult to injury. His individuals that he paid, he hired as district employees. And then when everybody started finding out this was going on, then they turned it over to the Frankfurt Park District. And again, you read the letters from the Frankfurt Park District that says we took it over in May of 2014. This has been going on since 2011. And oh, by the way, the former superintendent, he doesn't have to pay for his dog training because he's kind of grandfathered in. How can you justify that? And I'll be asking that once we get into court. How can you justify that? Spending your tax dollars that are meant to educate your children to put together this great education that they've been doing for so many years, but it's all these little asides that this governmental body is doing to hurt you and your kids at this point. That's what these folks are up here about. That's what we're going to try and get the judge to say, you know, Lincoln Way Board of Education, you made a bad decision. It was arbitrary, it was capricious, it was unlawful. Go back to square one. Give this community what they deserve and the absolutely proper review of what you're going to do.
Legal decisions are all about precedents. Can you cite any precedent where a court has overturned a school district or other government body decision
regarding the use of property. Regarding the use of property, you mean the school closure?
So that's what this is all about, right? It's really about the school closing. You're not doing this, you're not closing the school. So yes, is there any precedent to overturn the school district's decision to close the school?
If you prove it's arbitrary and capricious.
What's the
You're-
precedent?
What's the precedent?
Yeah.
It's gonna come from these folks. Because
Okay,
I'll
so
tell
there's
you
no
right
precedent.
now, the cases that I've found.
You're hoping this is gonna be precedent setting in the state, in the state of Illinois.
Yes. Governmental bodies' decisions have been turned over. Have I found an exact case where a school closing, a high school closing has been overturned by the circuit? Well, it was overturned by the circuit court, and it was reversed by the appellate court. So there has been a decision overturned. There have been a couple of decisions overturned, and appellate courts have come in and then overruled the circuit courts. But it's all about precedent on specific facts. These are all, when you're talking about an arbitrary and capricious decision, you're talking about highly fact-specific and fact-intensive cases.
But this is by far not the first public body in the state of Illinois to misspend money in extraordinary ways. For elected officials, it takes purpose they're not entitled to, even if there was theft involved. That wouldn't be a first in Illinois, and I don't recall any kind of court ruling that said a government body's decision about something like a school closing or expenditures of funds that had been made and already set in the motion could be nullified. And that's what I'm asking you. You're the attorney representing these people. What argument are you going to make to the court to say, hey, here's the legal precedent, when there never has been a decision like this in the state?
With all due respect, Bill, if I was to listen to you, I would have told these people when they came into my office with all this information, chalk it up, forget about it.
I'm going to tell them it's going to end up costing you guys tax money for pursuing your school district, right?
They understand
You might
that.
have told them that.
They understand that.
Lawyers don't do that.
Wait a minute, keep in mind that the district can choose to not spend any money and work with us. They can choose to do that, and we can stop this right now. They could call us tomorrow, call our attorney, we could all sit down and have a conversation with council president and figure this out. We know.
I'm just kind of disappointed to hear, just because it hasn't been generally successful, these folks shouldn't represent the interest of the community when there's a problem. That's been the problem in this state for 50 years. Government bodies have been taking advantage of their constituents, wasting tax money, stealing tax money, committing crimes, and nothing's happened. And it's about time that somebody does ask that something happens.
I would ask the question, why wouldn't the Board of Education want to work with us?
I'm stuck.
I would like to say something, that when we started this, before we made the decision to go forward with the lawsuit, this is not the first thing that we tried to do.
No.
We tried to talk to board members individually and in pairs. We talked at board meetings, because that was our only way of doing anything, was to talk in speeches. You can go back, most of them are on the website, our YouTube channel. And we tried many avenues of just pleading with them, begging to just talk to us. And we got nothing. This was our only avenue left over. And we also did a lot of research of across the country, not just in Illinois, but across the country, to find other precedents. So we didn't just fly by night, head over to Steve's office and plunk our stuff down and say, hey, can you help us? We did a lot of research beforehand. And what we found was there are other cases in other parts of the country, and they haven't been necessarily successful. The problem is that they were very small, very narrow, and they did not have as much information as we do. They did not have hundreds of people doing hundreds of things to get this done. They just didn't. So that's why this is different.
We're gonna
I
have
want to make sure
2 or
that,
3 more questions,
we have to
everyone.
make sure the press has the ability to ask some questions first, if there's anybody. Felix, did you?
Do you know how much the online fundraiser is raised?
I don't know the exact number, But it is open, so if anybody wants to donate, it is open. I don't have the exact dollar amount, but we do have a lot of support from the community, and so far, we've done pretty well. I don't have an exact dollar amount, and I don't think the person who has the ability to get on their casket is here today, sorry.
This is actually a two-part question. You mentioned enrollment earlier. Has your research supported or contradicted the board's statement that enrollment continues to decline at all 4 schools? And if it has supported it's continuing to decline at all 4 schools are kept open, what would be your proposed solution?
One of the things that was not done was no urban planning studies were done in the area to determine what could happen to the enrollment now that the housing market is starting to heal itself, now that it's not just about buildings, it's also about people moving out of their homes now that not as many people are underwater anymore. I know just in my, we all look around outside our front window and we see, for sale signs popping up and going down in a week. I had a neighbor who sold their house the same day they put it up for sale, and kids moved in. They didn't have kids. So if there's turnover that's happening, and that's starting to pick up. There was no urban planning studies about that. We just didn't do it. I can tell you this, that in August, FOIA'd the feeder districts to find out how is the area growing, and come to find that the area in Frankfurt 157C and Summit Hill 161, those are 2 of the feeder districts that are slated to go to East next year, grew 4 times as much as the rest of the district in terms of people and shares. So what do I have to say to it? I think, in all honesty, I think it's a great opportunity if our enrollment does dip a little bit, because as the teachers that are slated to retire do retire, we have an opportunity to save some money because they will be leaving. Maybe we don't have to replace them. And then once that happens and we see we know that the enrollment is picking up again in the lower groups because people started having babies again. Maybe by the time those folks get here, we'll have our buildings ready. It's very expensive to open a school. So I think if we can weather the storm for the next 5 to 10 years, right our ship, I think that we would be able to move forward with all 4.
So
We gotta wrap up.
you're saying that those kids would have gone to north and now they're being shifted east, but the growth is on the east side of the district where north is currently located?
That's where it looks like, but I'm not an expert. I'd really appreciate it if urban planners might do that.
Can you touch on the foundation a little bit? Because that was mentioned in the lawsuit as well. The foundation, I know it's a touchy subject with some people across the district, but there's some issues with that were talked about in the lawsuit.
Yeah, the foundation is a very touchy subject because all of us have donated money to the foundation via many things. I have a brick in one of the high schools myself that I paid for. It is a very touchy subject because I think a lot of us thought that the foundation was an all-volunteer organization, and we came to find out literally 2 months ago that it was not all volunteer. In fact, that there is a person who's paid to manage it, and is paid by the district. There is a lot of stuff in the lawsuit, and I can sit here and talk about all the pieces and parts of it, but, yeah.
Well, anyway, we gotta wrap it up, guys, so I just wanted to say a couple things. One, I want to thank everyone for coming out. I want to thank the press especially for coming out. I appreciate it. We want, and just keep in mind that, it's human nature to want to find out the reasoning for certain situations. And it's human nature to go ahead and move forward and say to yourself, how do we fix the problem? And just because it's never been fixed before in Illinois, we're hoping that maybe we can change something. We as a community can change something. We, the people, can do something. And this makes us, hopefully, have some input into what's going to happen in the community in the future. Thank you, everyone, for coming out. I appreciate the